So Deuce Gerald makes his announcement the following day. And what was that announcement? His top 10 schools. He cut it to 10. I mean, I'm like, big man, you've been getting recruited since you were in the 8th grade, and you're just now narrowing this down to 10 schools? What are we doing here? But whatever, let him get it. We'll pretend like there's still 10 schools in on this. There's certainly not. But the Buckeyes made the top 10. So made Deuce Gerald's top 10. I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships. The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Hey, welcome to Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me for the weekend show. If my Twitter feed is any indication, there might be some new folks, some first-timers. Welcome to Juck'S Studios. The entire The Podcast situation certainly buzzed around Twitter. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll hit it on the end of the show because I think there's something unfair about that I just want to point out. But we'll talk about that at the end. Definitely, we got some offensive line talk today. As we heard from the offensive lineman on Thursday, a couple of things really surprised me about that. I want to play a few clips. But today, I want to start with some Buckeye recruiting because the Buckeyes are on fire. Now, Ohio State playing at a disadvantage for a while, the long playoff run. But now that they have got the hardware, they got proof of concept that you can have good people, have great culture, follow local laws and regulations, and still win a national championship. And to be honest, the way the last cycle went, with more flips around the country than you can ever remember, I don't really like guys sitting in the class forever, just kind of marinating there. Because what's happening now is, and Ryan Day hit on this last week, he said, everything's positive when you're a recruit. Then you come, and when you're a young guy, things are positive. And then it can change real fast. And everything is positive when you're a recruit, especially this day and age. And I think that when these guys, some of them, commit early, they see that all of a sudden the attention drops off of them. They're done unless they're a Buckeye wide receiver, right? A big-time Buckeye wide receiver. That's just going to create more drama. But for many of them, they commit, and that's it. There's no more attention. And now they go for a couple months, and they see all their buddies still getting all this attention, and they kind of miss it. So they flirt a little bit and get their name back in the news. Some of them end up flipping. So don't really like them sitting there forever anymore. I really like waiting till about now and then kind of pouncing. I think it's a perfect time. It's a great time to be hot. And it has propelled me to 10 shows this week. As every time we have a commitment, of course, we got to come on here and do a show. We also do that whenever there's an announcement. If there's somebody saying that they're announcing Friday at the high school at 5:30 with the 3 hats, believe that we're going live here to either celebrate or whine together. Keep that in mind for the upcoming summer when we start seeing a lot of those. But we started off this week, obviously, with the number 1 or 2 safety in the country, depending on where you look. We're in on both of them because Matty G is just that dude. Blaine Bradford, out of Louisiana, committing to the Buckeyes in a stunner. Guy's brother goes to LSU. It's just wild still to think about. Then on April Fool's, we got an announcement that kind of felt like a commitment to a lot of us who were really nervous about Chris Henry and the relationship that was kind of brewing at Oregon between him and Dan Lanning and the new wide receiver coach. It just felt a little, you want to believe people's words. You want to believe in Brian Hartline, of course. But when there gets to a certain figure, there's some people that just can't say no to a certain figure. And sometimes it feels like Oregon will get to whatever that number is. So Chris Henry Jr. solidifies that. Now, I came on live immediately after I saw that news, and I'm sitting here talking all excited that he shut down his recruitment. And then one of the Duck fans comes in here and says it was an April Fool's joke, and I laughed at him at first. And then I was like, oh, my gosh, I didn't double check that. That might even been a fake account, when you don't really look real close, and it's like Con 3 instead of On 3 or something. So I rolled on with the show, hoping that everything was cool. And it was proper. Now, I wonder if he did that on April Fool's Day just to make people hesitate. I don't know. It was a wild day to pick to do that. Then we got the commitment from Simeon Caldwell, of course, a top 10 safety who may be on the Sonny Styles trajectory with the frame he's got. where he ends up playing linebacker before he ever even gets on the field at safety. Don't know. Doesn't matter. A great football player. So that's awesome. And finally, commitment to James Laurinaitis after losing Storm Miller from Strongsville just this week. Ohio linebacker CJ Sanna from Olentangy committed to the Buckeyes. Certainly wasn't a surprise, but we thought Storm Miller would probably stay in state as well. CJ Sanna, a true son of the state of Ohio, and CJ, a popular name around Ohio State. CJ Stroud, CJ Donaldson, CJ Hicks, CJ Sanna. We love the CJs. All the CJs, we'll take them. CJ Sanna, 6'3", 225 pounds. Other big offers included Oklahoma, Miami. After that, a pretty big drop-off. 24/7 rates him as a 3-star, the number 41 linebacker in the country, the number 22 player in the state of Ohio. The 24/7 composite has him as a 3-star, number 449 in the country, which is right on the cusp of getting that 4-star, which he's going to get. There's no doubt about it. But I'm going to show a couple of plays of him while I'm talking here. He is long, 225 pounds, as I said. A lot of people comparing him to Eli Lee, Tommy Eichenberg. I actually think he resembles Gabe Powers a little more than those guys. I think that Eli and Tommy, a little more of a classic thumper kind of style. Gabe Powers and CJ Sanna, a little rangier, a little longer, a little more athletic. This kid, one of the better track athletes in the state. Discus, shot put. He's obviously raw at football. Just his second season playing and just his first at linebacker you're watching right here. So we're talking about a kid who is putting that on film in his first season as a high school linebacker. That's pretty darn impressive. And James Laurinaitis sees the talent and thinks he can mold him into an Ohio State linebacker. And who the heck are we to disagree? Go get him, James. So this kid going to put on senior film that's going to be much better than that and come in with a great attitude. He clearly loves Ohio State, clearly wants to be at Ohio State. And, that makes me smile. So really like that. Now, he's the first linebacker in the class, and now everything shifts to another Ohio kid, Sincere Johnson, out of Glenville, who is now up to a top 100 player in 24/7, top 50 player in On3. Stock has steady risen. I don't know what took them so long, but it's not, I guess, the most fortunate situation, as last year at this time, the offer list wasn't incredibly strong for Sincere. Didn't even have his Ohio State offer yet. And I remember when James offered Jacoby Clapper and Storm Miller, Sincere still hadn't been offered yet. I didn't understand why. He was 230 pounds. Now, he told me at the time he'd be 215 when the season started, which he was, played so fast, and immediately the offer came from James Laurinaitis. So this one's going to come down to Ohio State and Alabama. Sincere wears number 8 at Glenville because he idolizes the last guy who wore number 8 at Glenville, going to be wearing number 8 at Ohio State this upcoming season, and that's Arvell Reese, of course. Sincere is going to be a Buckeye, man. Sincere is going to be a Buckeye. I'll not take a second to believe anything else. He is so explosive. He is so legit. And I can't wait to see him in a Buckeye uniform. So
it was amazing, just being able to come to the game and getting told by Coach Dan, Coach Laurinaitis that I'm off for Ohio State and I have a future there. That's amazing. As an Ohio kid, obviously as Ohio high school, and what everyone dreams of.
Well, it's kind of funny because you switched to number 8, I think, in honor of Arvell.
Yes, sir.
And he's there now. What kind of impact does that have on you?
That guy that was my role model in high school, him and Lil Braylon, number 3. And I learned from the best how to play linebacker, how to come out and be dominant. And that right there was great. And I just love that guy. And he just love everything they taught me. And I'm just keep moving forward and pass the torch on to the next generation.
Tonight, on a couple of plays, I thought that was Arvell. On top of those, he's running the alley pretty good.
So, Sincere, CJ Sanna, another guy outside the top 300 who isn't really a linebacker at all is Jacob Eberhardt out of Indiana. Jacob Eberhardt is kind of a do-it-all player for his team, but an excellent athlete. I'll play a couple of his plays here, and I think that this is a guy that James really, really wants. Some people have asked me, why is James going after getting Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford, guys that are outside the top 300 in this class? Seems like he's going after lower rated guys. And obviously they're lower rated because they're not incredibly experienced linebackers. They're not putting out great linebacker film. It's not because they're bad athletes. There's just more uncertainty because they're not playing linebacker. They haven't been playing linebacker for a while. But Jacob Everhart, excellent athlete. And I think that under James Laurinaitis' tutelage, he's going to be a really, really good linebacker. But I got a theory about Brian Hartline. And I think what Hartline is doing is kind of the same approach that Laurinaitis is taking, only it's a little bit different in how it's going on right now. So here's what I mean. The recipe for success is not Brian Hartline going out and getting 4 top 100 overall wide receivers anymore. Yes, he's done that before. It's just amazing. But that's not the recipe for success anymore. You're just going to lose a couple of them every year if that's what you go out and do. So what's he doing now? Well, let's look at the wide receiver room. You look at Mylan Graham in year 2, Quincy Porter in year 1. Those are dudes who look like they're ready to get in the rotation right now. Well, then you look at the rest of the class of 2025. Mylan was the year before, but the rest of the class of 2025, Quincy Porter, Phillip Bell, Des Jones, Bodpin Miller. None of those other 3 anywhere near ready to play. And that's the way he wants it. He wants these guys coming in staggered. This guy on this 3-year, 4-year track before he's going to see the field. And he knows that, and he's happy with that. He wants to come in and develop with that as the goal. And then you got your stud, your Quincy Porter caliber receiver. If you bring in 2 Quincy Porters and 2 guys right below them, you're going to lose 2. Now he's got 4 guys, and most likely 4 of them are going to stick in the system. And that's what you want. So it just doesn't work anymore to load up with the best talent you can. Now let's look at James Laurinaitis. You know what? Another added benefit to what Hartline's doing, if he's just going out getting the best receivers he can, those come in whatever body shape they come in. When he's going out and hand selecting these guys that he wants to stay in the program and he wants to develop them, it seems to me like he's really mixing up the body types a little more, which I find really interesting and I really like. So you got Des Jones, a true slot receiver. Phillip Bell's a bit of a do-it-all kind of guy. And then you got BP Miller, the supreme athlete who's just huge at 6'4", already put on 20 pounds. So he's mixing up these body styles. I think it's a lot more fun, really, to see which one of these guys are going to end up developing and popping. But I love the way he's going about this. I think it's the proper approach, particularly when you get a couple of Ohio guys like BP Miller, like Jaden Ricketts in 2026, who's a burner. And then, I really think that Braden Robinson might end up in this class as well at 5'8", incredibly fast out of Texas, not a normal body style that he would be looking at in the past. And then you got Brock Boyd, who's another guy outside the top 300, committed to TCU, that also might end up in this class. But I think it's the perfect strategy. I think it's brilliant, and I think he's been way ahead of the curve of other programs in this philosophy. Now, here's what I mean about James here when we look at linebacker. In the class of 2025, James Laurinaitis is looking at his linebacker room, and what does he got? He's got Cody Simon as a senior. Competing next to Cody Simon, he's got a converted safety in Sonny Styles with 2 years of eligibility. CJ Hicks with 2 years of eligibility, who he's looking at, probably acknowledging at that point that he's still got quite a ways to go. Then he's got Gabe Powers, Peyton Pierce, and Garrett Stover as his freshmen. He's got no idea how fast Arvell Reese is going to pick up the position, but he knows what kind of athlete he is. So he's looking at that thinking, I'm going to want some guys in this class that are going to be ready to roll. And he goes and gets his top 2 targets, high-level guys, Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford. And now he's loaded up, right? So now what's he do in the following class? Well, obviously he's going to get Tyler Atkinson, the number 1 linebacker, if he can. Of course, he's going to go after him. And then he's offered 4 Ohio linebackers in Jacoby Clapper, Storm Miller, Sincere Johnson, and CJ Sanna. Well, why would he do that when a couple of them are outside the top 300 in Storm Miller and CJ Sanna? Because he wants guys like Hartline who are going to give him a lot of potential to develop and are more likely to stay in the system and not leave after 1 or 2 years. And some people will say, well, Gabe Powers was from Ohio. He left after a couple years too. Gabe Powers was also a top 100 recruit, a little bit different. So he's going down the board a little bit. and getting guys who want to come to Ohio State, take that time to develop under James flipping Laurinaitis, and hopefully become the linebacker that they hope they can be. And I think it's an excellent strategy. I think he's adopting what Hartline's doing, and I think it's the perfect way to go. But no denying that the Buckeyes are on fire with the Chris Henry announcement shutting down his recruitment, with the Bradford commitment, with Simeon Caldwell's commitment. Did I forget Simeon Caldwell when I started this? No, I didn't. With Simeon Caldwell, with CJ Sanna. What a week for the Bucks. And now let's take a look at where the class is right now. I'm going to pull this up here. So in 247, the Buckeyes are currently at the number 3 class in the country. USC number 1, Clemson number 2, LSU number 4, A&M number 5, Oregon number 7, add on 3. So you've got LSU, USC, Ohio State number 3 at on 3 as well, Oregon 4, A&M 5, a lot of the usual suspects with Bama 6, and then Clemson, who is trying to come back and play. They were outside the top 20 last year, outside the top 15 the year prior, and they will tell you it's because they took small classes, which what they don't understand is that on 3 factors that in now. They go by based off a curve. So whatever the average number of commits is for a class, let's say it's 20 guys, you're only getting judged on your top 20 guys. So Ohio State had 27 guys. They're only getting judged on their top 20. And that's how they do it, which I think is a much better idea than how 24/7 does it. So the Clemson fans will claim it's because they had small classes. That really has nothing to do with it. They just don't recruit well anymore, but trying to again this year. Now, as we go over this class, we've got 3 secondary guys, 3 offensive linemen, 2 wide receivers, and a tight end. And I think shortly, another running back, as Favor Aki takes his 3rd visit since he got his offer to Ohio State. Just, not even been a month, I don't think. And that is happening today. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he made a commitment today. Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes, another running back target. Langston Hughes, Jelani Thurman, Aaron Nolan's high school, composite 4-star, top 200 guy, announced his top 5. That's Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida State. You still got Derek Cooper, obviously Savion Hyder, the number 1 running back, and Jay Lamar. Any one of those guys, no matter what happens with Favor, if he commits today or not, they'll be welcomed in the class, any one of them. So a 2 running back class, perhaps, we'll see, but it might depend on, who that next guy is. If it's any one of those guys, definitely, yes, there's a spot here for you. Remember, there's no 85-man limit now. You can go up to 105 if you want to pay for extra scholarship. And I don't think Ohio State has an issue with that. We have 3 offensive line coaches that are all offensive line coaches. But all right, couple of Buckeyes wide receiver targets who just visited Ohio State, in Caden Dixon-Wyatt out of Mater Dei. That's Chris Henry Jr.'s teammate. And Messiah Hampton out of New York, the best player in New York. He is electric. Caden Dixon-Wyatt gets more run because he's at Mater Dei, and there's not a whole lot of football being played, good football in New York. Messiah Hampton is my choice here out of the 2 of them. But Caden Dixon-Wyatt, coming out of his Ohio State visit, had really good things to say. Somebody close to him apparently told On 3 that they think Ohio State might have taken the lead over Oregon from that visit, which would be fantastic. But immediately they both headed to Oregon. So did that swing him right back? Who knows? What I do know is last cycle, just like this cycle, about 65% of all the prospects Ohio State is in on, also in on Oregon, and it's becoming phenomenally annoying. But if I had my pick of those 2 guys, Messiah Hampton would be my guy to add on to Chris Henry Jr., Jaden Ricketts, and a 4. Hey, I'll take them both. I'll be happy with them both, right? If you can take them out of Oregon's hands and get them in yours, that's always a plus. Let's get to quarterback. We know the Buckeyes aren't getting a top 10 quarterback. Why? Well, who wants to be in between Tavian St. Clair and Brady Edmonds? I don't. Derek Zammit was in town this week from DePaul Catholic. He's the guy who was throwing passes to Des Jones last year. 6'1", 205. And in the class of 2026, This kid's down to Syracuse, Washington, Mississippi State, and Alabama. Alabama is a real outlier offer for him. There's no other offers like that. This is not the prospect that I love. He's a really good quarterback. He's got some polish. But what I want out of Ohio State's quarterback in 2026, obviously not going to be some mega talented guy. My preference would be someone who has a really high upside with not a lot of polish. Someone Ryan Day can shine up that has the intangibles that you really look for, like 6'5", like Jet Tamala out of Omaha. Also has a cannon of an arm. And we hear Ryan Day talk about Will Howard's height all the time. He's enthralled by it, right? I think he'd love another one of those guys. That would include Peyton Falzone, who's 6'4.5". Peyton Falzone. Brad Mandler, who is the best quarterbacks coach in the Midwest, says Peyton Falzone has an arm like Drew Aller, but crazy athleticism. He's never coached a quarterback like him. His testing numbers are pretty awesome with an 11-second 100-meter. He certainly doesn't look like that kind of athlete. That's a fast quarterback, buddy. So Peyton Falzone, Jet, either one of those guys, I'd be really happy with that kind of a project quarterback. It's interesting. Like, yeah, at Ohio State, we call a 4-star top 300 guy a project quarterback, but it's just kind of the truth when you're talking about Tavian St. Clair, number 2 in his class. Same with Brady Edmonds and asking a guy to come in between them. So that's what we're looking at right there. Derek Zammit did not get an offer. If the Buckeyes want to get in on Derek Zammit from DePaul, going to need to offer fast because he wants to make a commitment pretty soon. Which takes us to number 1 safety in the class, Braylon Womack. Braylon in town this weekend. He's been in town. We know he loves Ohio State. There's no doubt about that. The competition for Braylon, Auburn, Florida, A&M. Dad's a Florida fan. Really love the Florida visit. Got an official scheduled to the Buckeyes. Officials all around for those 4. I don't see him making that decision anytime soon. It's going to be a long one. Even if he made a decision soon and it was Ohio State, that one's going down to the end for the young Buckeye fan from Mississippi. At corner, Minkah Fitzpatrick's little brother, Justice, goes to St. Thomas Aquinas, the Boza school, and he was just up visiting Ohio State. The Buckeyes now on his board. He's also headed to Georgia, Texas, Miami, and it's not just, okay, this is Minkah Fitzpatrick's little brother. It's a top 100 kid, really good corner. So interesting tidbit there. We'll follow up on. Rock Hill, out of my neck of the woods up here in Akron-Hoban, was at USC last week. Talked to his dad on Friday. USC coming incredibly hard. They rolled out the red carpet that included bringing Caleb Williams to campus, made him feel like the absolute top priority in the class, as has Oregon, as has Alabama. There is no official schedule to Ohio State yet, but they're working on it. And Rock was in town, not too long ago. It was last week. They popped down to Columbus, which, like the 12th time he's been down there. So, Jordan Thomas, another cornerback out of Bergen Catholic, that's Quincy Porter's teammate. Things look really good for him. According to Wilt Fong, he may be making a spring decision. And that one's starting to look like Ohio State-Michigan battle for one of the best players in New Jersey, and Jordan Thomas. Pairing him up with Jacob Weatherspoon would certainly lessen the blow if the Buckeyes did lose Rock Hill, for me. Obviously, I don't want him to lose Rock Hill, but if you could get Jordan Thomas, I guess that would make me feel a little bit better about it. On the defensive line, man, be nice to get somebody committed on the defensive line, and I thought that might happen this week when Deuce Gerald's pulled a little rope-a-dope on us. Deuce Gerald's top 100 overall defensive lineman. Buckeyes have been in on forever. Larry offered him his freshman year of high school. I think he's just an animal. He's just a tank. All right, here's why Deuce Gerald's is my favorite. Take a look at this kid. Just an absolute animal, and keep in mind, look at the names of the competition he's going up against. We're talking Micah DeBose, Alabama, Zaire Addison, Oregon, all a year older than him. I believe he also goes against Michael Carroll in this clip, 5-star defense or 5-star offensive lineman going to Alabama. And here he is against Micah DeBose, violent with his hands, unbelievably powerful. Gavin Blanchard, that's a Clemson commit right there, light work. Micah DeBose again. Just a beast, man. They can't contain him. They can't control him. Michael Carroll, that's a 5-star offensive lineman going to Bama. It doesn't even look like a fair match. Zaire Addison, he's going to Oregon. I think Zaire Addison was incredibly underrated. He's going to be awesome. And that's Emmanuel Ahianachu, the number 2 offensive lineman in this class. Just a tank. He's just too much to deal with. He's under 6'2", about 275, barrel-chested, just beast. And he is an intimidating guy out there. I've got some good footage of him at a camp where he's just pulverizing 5-star tackles, and he's a year younger than him. But he made an announcement. Now, he was in town, in Columbus, and he sent out a tweet, Hayes Fawcett, announcement tomorrow. And everybody's going, oh, boy. This is right about the time last year when London Merritt came into town from Georgia, made his announcement that he was committing to Ohio State. So Deuce Gerald makes his announcement the following day. And what was that announcement? His top 10 schools. He cut it to 10. I mean, I'm like, big man, you've been getting recruited since you were in the 8th grade, and you're just now narrowing this down to 10 schools? What are we doing here? But whatever, let him get it. We'll pretend like there's still 10 schools in on this. There's certainly not. But the Buckeyes made the top 10. So made Deuce Gerald's top 10. Aiden and Andrew Harris, the Harris twins from Weddington High School in North Carolina, which is Trajan Odom, freshman at Ohio State's high school. He was their teammate. It was looking really, really good for Aiden Harris, one of the best defensive tackles in the class. Larry Johnson and Aiden had connected through scripture. There was a lot of mutual respect and admiration from Aiden Harris to Larry Johnson, and things were looking real good. And they just scheduled their official visits. Now, who knows? This is just their first. The Buckeyes still probably in the mix heavily here, but not one of the first official visits on their official visit list. A lot of people think Auburn is now the school to beat here when it had previously been Ohio State. That really sucks, man. That really sucks because it was looking like, okay, if you can get Aiden Harris and you can get Deuce Gerald, you're starting to, build back that young, super stud talent in the interior of that defensive line. So Damari Simeon will be in town. Damari Simeon is another top 100 defensive tackle, 6'2", 275. And I think that he is one of the best players in New Jersey. And we watched this film, really, really good, really, really good looking kid. So that might be an option there. Luke Waffle obviously is a total stud. I think the best player in New Jersey. And he looks like a cross between the Bozas and Jack Sawyer. He really likes LJ as well. And Steve Wiltfong seems to think the Buckeyes are leading. What a pickup that would be for the 6'5.5", 245-pounder who just plays like a bat out of hell, man. I'm telling you, Luke Waffle, he just might be my number 2 want on the defensive line after Carter Meadows, who's just, boy, if they could land him. So still nobody on the defensive line. Sure hope we get somebody soon. Now, Chris Henry Jr., this is Josh Newberg from On3. Here's what he has to say about Chris Henry Jr. shutting down his recruitment.
For now, I do believe that Chris Henry Jr. is shutting it down. I don't think at this moment he's talking with other programs. I think he is locked into Ohio State and not considering the other teams for now. Because Chris Henry Jr., he's been committed for nearly 2 years already, but for some reason this announcement feels like he just committed to Ohio State. Why does it feel like he just committed to Ohio State? Because I think things were getting very serious between Henry and Oregon. Yes, USC was involved, Miami was involved as well, but I think this whole thing happened, this whole shutdown happened because of the direction it was heading between Henry and Oregon, and I think Ohio State wanted it to stop, at least for now. It is over. His recruitment is done. He's not taking those visits for now.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting for now? For an Ohio State wide receiver. I mean, these guys are shameless with this. They really are. Has Brian Hartline ever struck you as the kind of guy that got scared about something like that and said, you need to shut it down now or else we're out, we're pulling out, you're out of the class? Because that's what he's insinuating. He's insinuating things were getting so close and hot and heavy between Chris Henry Jr. and Oregon that Hartline said to him, Either you knock it off and shut it down, or else we're out. That's what he's insinuating there, right? That's the way I take it. Do you take it any different? If we're to believe that, do we believe that Brian Hartline did that? I don't. So I think they're just continuing to try to leave a little bit of an out there so that they can pull something up later on, just like they did with Jeremiah, just like they did with Naeem, turn out to be right. But here we go again with these guys. Anyway, offensive line recruiting, we talked a ton of it this week. We'll talk some more next week. You're probably burnt out on that right now. But let's get to a snippet of the interview I just did with our guy, our new commit from Arizona, Tucker Smith, who is so appreciative of this Ohio State offer and the fact that he can be a part of this class. It just fills your Buckeye heart with pride.
And then they're like, we want you to meet Ryan Day and go in his office and talk with him. And when we did that, we walked in there, we were talking for about, I say, 15 minutes. And then he was like, well, that's why we want to offer you a scholarship here. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is awesome.
So check that out. It's on the page, 10 minutes long. I just like to ask 10 questions to these guys just to get a feel of their personality, because so often we don't hear from them. Gabe Van Sickle, for instance, talked on Thursday with the offensive lineman. That's the first time we've ever heard from Gabe Van Sickle. I had no idea what he sounded like. It's just cool to get to know these guys, put a personality to a face we see out there, because we so rarely get to see offensive linemen in particular speaking until they're much older. So it's a pretty cool one. Check that out. The Max Riley one's really cool too. He did an awesome job as well.
Yeah, so starting off with Sam, I called him like 20 minutes before I announced my decision. It was just like, hey man, like, I'm committing to Ohio State. Like, we need you next. Like, let's get this thing going. I originally thought he was going to take a little bit longer in his recruitment, but I get a phone call a week or two later. And he's like, hey, I'm planning on committing tomorrow to Ohio State, and just don't tell anybody because I'm going to go down and surprise him. And he ended up doing that, and that was a pretty, like, full circle moment.
Let's talk about the actual offensive line. Tyler flippin' Bowen, man. Look, I don't have a commitment to announce here about the offensive line, but I am so happy with this guy, man. He is, listen to him on Thursday, and obviously he talked about a lot of things. The Iron Buckeye for Austin, talked about Carson and Ethan. We got to hear from everybody on the offensive line except for Tegra, which really stinks. I think Tegra's a really introspective guy, which I always find like incredibly interesting from a 6'6", 340-pound young guy. Like, he's just interesting to talk to. But we got a ton of cool nuggets out of these interviews, and a 15-minute interview with Tyler Bowen. As far as the depth in the room and the experience that the vets have to draw back on from the run, really happy with that, and really seem to be very happy about what they got on the inside. Of course, we are as well. Transfer tackle Ethan Onyanwa. He said he's doing a great job and very coachable. But the first thing he said, obviously, is that he's a physically impressive guy, which of course he is. And he's now down to 335 pounds, which is where he's going to stay. And he looks pretty svelte at that weight. About Carson Hinsman, both as a player and a leader, he said Carson is a guy who can run the show, keep us on the same page. Communication is obviously fundamental and one of the most important things for the offensive line. And Austin Serveld, who came up in almost, everybody's interview, he said obviously he was the Iron Buckeye. He's a luxury piece because he can handle everything. Then he was asked about the rotation with the offensive line. He said that he's never done that before. He said that he's never done it before as an offensive line coach, but they did it at Virginia Tech because it was necessary. But what Ryan Day said earlier this week, as far as the cross training that they're doing, boy, it sounds like almost 50% of the line is really having a secondary position here. You need to put yourself in the best position to be able to get your best five out there. You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you lose a tackle and your backup tackle is your 8th or 9th best lineman because you didn't take the time to train your 6th or 7th best guy how to play guard and tackle. So they're making sure they don't get caught in a situation like that again. which obviously is the best move. I call that the Zen Mahalski rule. Zen Mahalski, look, Zen's going to be starting for Indiana, and people are telling me Indiana is going to be a real threat. My buddy Sam from College Football with Sam, he really is a believer in Indiana. And look, if you're leaning on Zen Mahalski to be your starting left tackle, I just got to question how far you're going to get. But anyhow, now my biggest takeaway about Tyler Bowen, head coach vibes, man. There are guys that you listen to that are assistant coaches in college football, and you listen to them and it's like, okay, and that's an assistant coach. And that's awesome if you're a guy in the coaching profession that gets to this level at a big time program. You usually have a successful career and you can stay at that level being an assistant, bouncing around for the rest of your career. And that's great. And then there are guys that when you hear them talk, when you hear them articulate their philosophy, when you see how they communicate, when you see how players react to them, you just say, wow, head coach vibes right there, buddy.
Sorry, how do you make sure that your staff, your offensive line coaches, have the same messaging and teaching every single day?
I'm glad you asked that. That's been very important to us to make sure that we have one voice. I think what Coach Day has structured here, we have a chance to have the best offensive line resources in the country for those guys. But it all starts with myself, making sure that we install. We got to have our own little staff, if you will, right? So we install from under direction of Coach Hartline, right? We get on the same page. This is exactly how we teach a down block. This is exactly how we teach a gap drive. This is exactly how we're teaching a combo in the backside and inside zone, whatever the case may be. But we get on the same page. We make sure that gets messaged. When in the meeting room, it's one voice first. Before we ever, meet on the side, meet extra, it's one voice first. And I think what makes it work is you got three guys with not big egos. Like our goal is to serve the players and to make sure that they're the best versions of themselves. And I think you've got that group in that room that has that mentality. So it's been awesome. I think the guys would say that it's been a huge resource for them. The amount of reps we're able to get in a practice setting and also detailed reps, right? I've got one set of eyes. So having multiple set of eyes, we're able to coach live time, try to make corrections at practice. So that part's been fun. And I think it's been better than we expected.
Tyler Bowen, man, you can see him in the big seat. You can see him in the big chair. It would have to be a really big chair because he's like 6'7", 320, but that dude gives off serious head coach vibes. And it is no wonder he's been so successful already on the recruiting trail because he just oozes high level competence. Absolutely. You want that guy leading you. And further, when he talks about how Coach Day structures this, I call it Ohio State muscle. And he's talking about that he's basically got, two assistant offensive line coaches that are, last year had their own offensive line room at Purdue and Oklahoma State. I call it Ohio State muscle, and that's having the desire, the resources, the commitment to football, and the draw to be able to hire three quality, experienced offensive line coaches in just the second year that they're allowed to essentially have unlimited coaches. And now when we look at this offensive line staff, this is something, man. I mean, this is a force. That's Ohio State muscle right there. It's something that I'll never take for granted because we could root for a program that did not invest in football, that didn't want to be excellent at football. We could root for a program like Wisconsin that everybody in Wisconsin loves. They have a huge fan base, but they don't invest. They don't care to be excellent. And we got a program that will absolutely match what anybody else in the country will do to try to win at football. And, I consider us so lucky to root for a program where we never have to worry that is going to happen, that they'll not try as hard as everybody out there. It makes it a whole lot more enjoyable. Now, my favorite offensive lineman on this team, without a doubt, is Luke Montgomery. Luke did not disappoint on Thursday, promptly using the opportunity to make fun of Tyleik Williams, who apparently claimed to his teammates after he had fallen down during his 40 that he would have ran a 4.8 had he not fallen down.
I played all year last year with all those freak athletes in the front that are 330 pounds and would have ran a 4.8 if he didn't fall. But yeah.
I think Luke questions whether or not that was going to happen, but I'm going to be honest. I think he might have got it, man. He got a great start. He was cooking. That dude is fast for such a big guy. He has always wowed me at 329 pounds. He is so twitchy. Cannot wait to see him in the NFL. Luke Montgomery said he gained a ton of experience throughout the run last year, and he felt prepared because of his daily battles against JT and Jack and Ty and Tyleek. I remember hearing Luke talk in spring last year about coming out of high school, walking into Ohio State. All right, I'm thinking, I'm the dude, right? Nobody's ever been able to physically manhandle me. And then he comes in and he said that Tyleek just bodied him so fast. He didn't even know what hit him. His helmet was turned around. That's got to be such a rude wake-up call when you've been a guy, nobody in Ohio in high school could Luke not square up against and win those reps. And then he gets to college thinking, all right, they're a little bit bigger, whatever. Nobody's beaten me ever before. And then he just gets mollywopped over and over again. That would suck. But he's found his voice in the locker room, and you could definitely see. We heard Jake Cook, freshman Jake Cook, our guy, say that Luke Montgomery is a guy who he looks up to for veteran leadership, and I love seeing that. I think that Luke is just a great guy. He's a great Buckeye. Now, Jake Cook was recruited and offered by Justin Fry as a center, very specifically as a center. And I remember this because I was told this was the reason that Justin Fry literally ghosted another offensive line recruit who tried to commit on a very expensive official visit. Ohio State couldn't take him because he was also going to be a center at the next level. And Jake Cook, well, he was the one they liked better. Now, God forbid you got an extra body in a depleted offensive line room. So surely Jake Cook is playing center, right? Right? No. Jake has been playing guard since he's been here. Transfer Ethan Onyanwa. I have played this for you before. Now, this was our introduction as Ohio State fans to Ethan Onyanwa after he was signed in the transfer portal. Now, I love the reaction of his terrified teammates, and I was really looking forward to hearing him talk. What's this huge man mountain madman sound like? I really was not expecting this.
What was it about Ohio State that made Ohio State the right place for you in the transfer process?
So kind of what I was saying earlier about the culture, really. Like, you can just tell that the guys here are competitive. They want to be great. They want to be the best in the country, and they showed that last year. And yeah, it just really stood out because, back in my old school, there was like a really good family connection. I was kind of afraid of whether I'll find that in another school, but here, the guys were really close knit. We're all pushing each other and trying to be the best.
What stood out?
Now that is just a mellow, low-key, thoughtful dude. Look, don't judge a book by its cover. When he was asked if he seeked out Ohio State or if Ohio State seeked him out.
Did you seek out Ohio State, or they seek you out, or was it kind of a joint thing?
I most definitely seeked out Ohio State.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I most definitely seeked out Ohio State. I absolutely love that. He's one guy that has not been cross-training. His reps have all been at left tackle, and he's going to be the starting left tackle. Said he transferred to Ohio State because of the team culture. He had a really good family connection at Rice, and he wanted it at his new school. Tyler Bowen said he was a very hardworking guy, and Ethan said he tries to be the hardest working person on the field. That's what I want to do. I want to spend the most time watching film. I want to spend the most time getting the extra work. That dude's going to have a long NFL career with that kind of attitude. Phillip Daniels, out of Cincinnati, went to Minnesota, grew up a Buckeye fan. His brother was a bigger Buckeye fan, but I thought the Bucs should have offered him out of high school. They didn't. Whatever, he's here now. But he talked about Kenyatta and JJ and Jelani when he first got here. Like, wow, looking at these guys, like, I'm really here. I'm really at Ohio State. And obviously he loves the brotherhood. He said when he came as a guy who wasn't even committed, they welcomed him in as a brotherhood. It's not fake. It's not a slogan, man. It's how things are in Columbus. And we hear that same testimony over and over again. He's an outsider coming in, and they treated him like that. And that's a guy coming in to potentially take somebody's job. I just think it's so unique to Ohio State. I love it. And, it's something to be proud of. Working at right tackle with Ian Moore, he's absolutely loved. He says Ian's one of the craziest young guys he's ever been around. And Ian Moore, now that's a dude with some personality. So I had to tweet this on Thursday. Now, remember what I said about Matt Patricia. Everybody's over here talking about CJ Hicks. I said, if there is a circumstance where Matt Patricia is going to come in and weaponize someone, it's not going to be CJ Hicks. It's going to be Arvell Reese. Now, Ian Moore was asked, is it different blocking guys this year like CJ Hicks and Arvell Reese? This is Ian's answer.
Arvell is one of the most athletic guys I think I've ever seen in my entire life. He probably runs like a 4.4, 4.3. I've seen him do, I don't know what his pro shuttle is, but it looks fast. And like him just kind of bending that edge. It's not like scary, but it's kind of scary,
Which is both hysterical, and of course he was asked about both of them, and he highlighted Arvell Reese. I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying. Carson Hinsman, one of the last remaining guys of the class of 2022. We talked about that class, 2/3 of which is gone. Only one of those guys, and Hero Canoe, went to another Ohio State caliber spot in Texas, and most of them not in the P4. Just a lot of misses in that class. But he said, Marv was in town last week, and Marv said, class of 2021, best class ever. And he's like, what can I say? There's not even anybody here. But Carson Hinsman, after coming in and giving a valiant effort in 2023 as the center when he wasn't ready, sat the bench most of 2024, and when finally given the opportunity after Zen Michalski went down in the Nebraska game and Donovan Jackson had to move over to tackle for the Penn State game, they went with Carson Hinsman at guard, and Carson Hinsman put on what I thought was the best performance of the year from a guard. Makes you wonder why he wasn't maybe playing or rotating with Tegra when he had been struggling before that game. But at any rate, Carson trying to build on the culture, build the culture of the offensive line back up from where it was last year. Really excited, obviously, to be playing with Luke, Austin, and Tegra. They're going to Ray Ray's barbecue. Shout out Ray Ray's. Cool to hear him talk. That's a guy I think everybody really likes, and I can't wait to see what he's got in store this year after kind of resurrecting his career in the second half of the year last year. It's awesome to see after all the crap he took from the not so great year in 2023. Josh Padilla, he feels like he's ready. Got his weight up to 300, used to struggle to get it there. Now he's good, and he feels like he's ready when his name's called. Talked about Seth McLaughlin making such a big impact on how he prepares for the game, how he looks at first and second down differently because of the information he learned from Seth, reading defenses, and that's just a gift that keeps on giving. Remember last year at this time, the future Remington Award-winning center was catching strays for having bad snaps. So what a turnaround. What a delight it was to watch Seth block. The Armstrong twins. Deontay was 270 when he got to Ohio State, got up to 320. Now he's at 305. His goals for this year are just to develop as well as his brother, and it's pretty clear that neither of them are in line for any playing time this year by the way they're talking. And Tyler Bowen said about Tyler Bowen, he said, I love him. I absolutely love him. And this was just a common refrain. Everybody obviously is going to say they love their new coach, but it felt like, man, they were going a little bit extra. They were going a little bit extra in how they enjoy Tyler Bowen's coaching style. In addition, how they love that they have all these voices that deliver the same message over and over again. And who hit on that, which was really interesting, was Javon McFadden. Freshman Javon McFadden wanted to point out that not only do we have all these coaches and resources to go to, but they all deliver the same exact message. I can ask Coach Dickey, I can ask Coach Bowen, I can ask Coach Johnson. They're all going to tell me the same exact thing.
Just coming every day with the mindset that I'm here to work. I come in the building, I come in the Woody, and they know that I'm here to work. They know that I'm not here to play around. They know that I'm coming in the meeting asking questions, trying to figure out what's going on, picking the older guys' brains, staying out the practice, even and getting extra work.
And a black stripe alert came this week as Eric Mensah, second-year guy out of Virginia, got his black stripe removed. Usually, when it's a guy who gets a late offer from Ohio State because the coach kind of has to go down the board after some misses, I usually kind of dismiss that prospect. I shouldn't, but it's just kind of, I don't know, it's probably instinctual. Like, okay, miss, go down the board, miss, go down the board. When you get to a certain point, I'm like, whatever, he's a body. And that's very dismissive and rude to say, but like, it's just like, I never thought this was a guy that I would really pay any mind to. Then I got to listen to his personality in an interview, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. I'm really rooting for Eric Mensah. So at 6'3", 290, he's definitely got the size. His high school film, which I didn't even watch until not too long ago, pretty doggone impressive. So saw his personality, really liked him, really happy that he lost his black stripe. Now, that means there are only 2 second-year players who have not yet lost their black stripe. Both of them, guys we were talking a lot about last year at this time, as physical freaks in a very different way. One of them, 6'7" punter out of Australia, Nick McClarty, still has his black stripe. The other one, Demarion Witten from Glenville, who came in as a tight end in the wide receiver room. He's never made it to the tight end room because he's, just not big enough yet for that. I don't know how he let that happen, man. The last guy in your class, still with the black stripe. I don't think Teddy Sr. would be happy about this, man. I don't know what's going on with him. So he's got to get that puppy off. All right, so let's go over the podcast stuff. Just facts by facts by facts. Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham's podcast did not air on Wednesday and Thursday. But on Thursday, Austin Ward was at the Woody doing his normal interviews, only he wasn't wearing his normal podcast apparel. He was wearing the fan shirt. I know this because he made sure to get himself in the shot like he always does every time he's there because he's super important. And, most of the guys try their very best not to reach in front of the players while they're talking to grab their tape recorder. He makes it a point to do that. At any rate, Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham, there is a message on 11W's message board from the Oracle, and the message says this about why their podcast isn't on. Forget the first paragraph. He says, you guys have no idea how reviled Austin and Burma are on the beat. Well, I have an idea. They big time everyone because they're backed by the people who give Ryan Day 80% of his direct payments to players NIL. By the way, Schott and Egmari are not the guys. If you know, you know. So those grifters get the best and first access. Sure, call it sour grapes. Doesn't change the facts. Imagine what would happen to you if you brokered a deal for $25,000 for Caleb Downs to promote your product, paid Downs $5,000 and pocketed the other $20,000. You think you might lose your job too? Grifter's going to grift. Okay. The Oracle is a message board guy, for those who don't know, who's been around for a long time on Ohio State message boards, gotten a lot of stuff right. That doesn't make that right or make it so, though there is definitely some truth in that message. That's for sure. And shortly after that, Doug Lesmerises released on the podcast subtext that they've been fired for cause. Tech subscribers, due to the recent termination of Austin Ward and Jeremy Birmingham for cause, we've elected to end our tech service at this time. We believe it appropriate to remind you to cancel by hitting stop. Shortly after that, Austin Ward comes out and defends himself. I know you all have a ton of questions about what has happened to the podcast and my firing this week. Really looking forward to being able to discuss and provide as many answers as I can when I'm able. The cause, in quotations, like you can just feel the sarcasm coming off this guy in the cause. He can't help himself. The cause of the matter is a sponsorship for a recent series that the company alleges that I directly profited from and accuses me of theft. This is unequivocally and demonstrably false, and all records can prove that easily. Until the suit is resolved, that's all I can discuss at the time. It sounds like he's referring to the 24 Ever series they were doing that had a sponsor called Axios. And it sounds like Doug's saying that the money from that Axios sponsorship did not get into the proper coffers at the company, instead went somewhere else. And Austin is saying it did, and he can easily prove it. Now, whether he can, whether he can't, I don't know. But if he can easily prove it, why did he get fired? Who knows? But there could be a reason. Doug could have made an error. We don't know. What I do know is this. I had my best friend embezzle $40,000 from me. Anybody saying, I don't think that guy would do this, he doesn't seem like the guy, like, you have no idea. I'm talking my very, very best friend. And it was like a knife through my heart. So I certainly feel for Doug if that happened. On the flip side, everybody throwing these guys out there like they did this and it's a fact. That's just wrong, man. There's no proof here yet. There's nothing. There's nothing at all. And then you got the third thing, and that is the allegations from the message board about the NIL in Caleb Downs, which that sounds like total gobbledygook to me. But in any route, it's from a message board, right? So here's the thing. We're going to know. Here's how we'll know what's true and what's not. If that happened, there was an embezzlement from Caleb Downs, right? Well, now you're dealing with a player. Their credentials are going to get revoked. You're not going to see them around the program again. If it has to do with Doug, well, that's a matter that's going to go to court, civil court, and potentially criminal court if they're found guilty in civil court. But they're not going to lose their credentials. They still both write for rivals. Austin still works for the Fan. So if we see them around the program on a continual basis, they start up a new show and you see them around the program, well, then we know that the stuff on the message board about Caleb Downs was total nonsense, because if you're stealing from a player, the program's not going to have you around. If they're no longer at the program, they're no longer omnipresent in the building, and you don't see Austin Ward standing behind the table when the players are talking like he owns the place, then you know what happened. They're not there, then the message board was right. They are there, then this has nothing to do with that, and it's all about the situation that Doug is alleging, the theft. Bottom line is, nobody knows anything. Be careful what you say about people when you don't know, man, because let's be honest, we've all been accused at some point or another of doing something we didn't do, whether it's been in a public forum, or it's been in our personal lives, or it's been at work, or it's been from a classmate or a workmate. We've all been accused at one point of something that we did not do, whether it be really small or really big. Everybody's been there, and you know what that feels like. So jumping to conclusions and throwing accusations out there as if you do know when you don't, on either side, right? Because if Doug was stolen from, then Doug's a victim. If these guys didn't do anything and their names being sullied out there, then they're the victims. We don't know who's the victim. We don't know who's the pariah here. If Doug's alleging this and they didn't do it, then he's the pariah. You know what I mean? So we don't know. And I would just caution anybody to throw him under the bus just because you dislike him or dislike one of them. You know what I mean? That's it. I think it's a little unfair, the reaction that I've seen from it when nobody knows anything. And I guess that's all I really got to say. And again, it's not me taking up for any of them. I don't like them. I really don't. I don't like their work. I don't like the things they say. I can't, I kind of went at them over the game situation, the segment that got on Pate. Like, that was all about them and their whole attitude leading up to that week. And then the interview with Bjork that I went off on that Pate picked up. That was all like me and them. And, there's a lot of things I don't understand it. I don't understand the love. So that's all I got to say about that. And that will conclude our weekend show. My voice is starting to hurt. I'm really cold down here in Juck'Ice Studios tonight. I've even got a space heater. Should have put my sweater on. At any rate, if you're one of our new listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Please consider subscribing. It helps the show a lot. We're doing really well. It's been a year now. We're on month number 14 here at Juck on Bucks. And if you're just finding us, we appreciate you stopping by to join. And I want to let everybody know I saw just an outpouring, and certainly I hate to capitalize on somebody else's pain, but people saying, "Oh, I need a new podcast now." And man, I got tagged in so many messages. I got a message from my buddy Dylan Davis from the Delaware Gazette. He said, "I have seen so many people recommend your show on Twitter today. It's just unbelievable." And it's just, to see that lets me know, like, man, people really appreciate the hard work I put into it. And I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much. If you are someone out there that just unprompted throws that out there, and I saw some really nice things said. So I appreciate you guys very much. It makes it all worth it, because it's certainly, a lot of work, and it's a lot of fun. And I appreciate you all. So thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out.